Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this Math and Sciences panel. My name is Jasmine Hardy, and I am an Assistant Dean of Admission at Amherst. I'm also a former student. I graduated from Amherst in 2013, so it's super fun for us to be able to talk with you. I know this is not the ideal way to be having panels right now, but we're thrilled that you are joining us and interested in learning more about Amherst. So to get started, I'm just going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, and thank you to all of you who have submitted questions in advance of this panel. We will be addressing those questions. We're going to try and get to as many questions as we can in this hour. And if any of you have questions that come up that you would like to ask, please feel free to submit that to me via the private message feature in Zoom. So submit any questions that you have. I will do my best to get to as many questions as possible. You likely have noticed that you are muted and your video is turned off. That is just to make sure that we can get as smooth of a panel going as possible. But please feel free to direct any questions that you might have to me. Thanks again for joining us.
Hi, I am Professor Mark Edwards. I'm a professor in the biology department at Amherst College here. I started a couple of years ago, and I teach primarily in the introductory bio classes and the intermediate cell and molecular biology classes. And I'm happy to be answering questions and be joining you all today.
Hi everyone, my name is Kat. I'm a senior biochemistry major, and I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I'm on the pre-med track as well, and here at Amherst, I was an organic chem TA. I'm the captain of the lacrosse team, and I wrote a thesis with Professor O'Hara in biochemistry.
Hi everyone, I'm Kenny. I'm from Eastern Washington, sophomore, he, his, stats major and potential CS or math double major. I'm doing some research with Professor Horton on some data science stuff, so that's really cool. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt. I'm from Central New Jersey and I'm a junior at Amherst. And I'm majoring in math and American studies, and I'm also on the swim team.
Great, thank you all. So to get started, one of the most common questions that we had is about research opportunities. So would you mind talking a bit about what research opportunities in the math and sciences look like at Amherst and what sorts of opportunities there are for research?
So I can talk a little bit about in biology and chemistry, since what I have experience in, but first of all, I know a lot of people take advantage of the summer programs. So over the summer, a lot of the professors offer SURF, it's called, so undergraduate research, where they basically support your research in their lab for, I think, 10 weeks over the summer. And it's a really great opportunity for rising sophomores and rising juniors to dive into lab experience. Because it's typically pretty hard to find lab experience outside of Amherst when you're an underclassman. So I know a lot of people took advantage of that, which they really liked. And then there are also opportunities during the year. So a lot of professors do run their own labs and have ongoing research projects. So a lot of times it's very easy. You reach out to a professor and you say, oh, I'm interested in this project. Like, can I talk to you about it? And a lot of times they have room to kind of bring you onto their team and talk to you, and you start going to lab meetings and things like that. So I did a senior thesis with Professor O'Hara, which was a year-long project where I ended up writing it all up and just submitted it this morning. But basically with that, you do research as a class. So in the fall, it was one class, and in the spring, it was two classes for me. And it was just a really great opportunity to dive in and have really awesome mentorship. The professors really care about you and your projects, which is something unique, I think, to Amherst and to these smaller schools where you can kind of really have great one-on-one mentorship. And that was the really amazing way for me to dive into lab research. So I'm appreciative of
Hi. I guess as one of those professors that Kathleen spoke about that runs a lab and cares a lot about students that are in my lab, I'll say yes, that we pride ourselves in offering in the biology department I'll speak to, and the biology biochemistry program, which I'm also a part of, in offering research experiences for students. I run a research laboratory. I work on cellular motility and cancer cell migration. I have 10, 10 and a possible students in my lab at the moment, a couple of which are doing research for credit with me. That takes two forms. There are special topics, so independent research projects that students engage in the laboratories and they get course credit for. I have two thesis students in biology and BCBP, that is biochemistry biophysics program, get up to 3 credits worth of credit hours and class for doing a research project and for writing a research thesis. Research thesis is sort of the standard, a part of a standard unit of measure for students hoping to go on to graduate schools and other research opportunities after their undergraduate careers, for doing a long concerted body of work, a substantial amount of research. So our undergraduates get a substantial amount of credit. I think 3 classes worth of credit is more than most places that I certainly know of as my time as a student and a professor that give credit for actual research hours. So I think that's to our benefit. In addition, I run a summer program for a small cohort of rising sophomores called a Summer Science Incubator that'll begin this year. It's going to get off to a little bit of a rocky start because it'll have to be digital this year, but in subsequent years, we hope to do it on campus, and that offers a cohort of rising sophomores more dedicated research training and sort of an introduction and a bridge to get into research careers. It's a new program at Amherst College. They were gracious enough to fund it between myself and another assistant professor in chemistry, Christopher Durr, and it is a signal and an indicator of the direction that the college is progressing and growing into in terms of supporting undergraduate research and supporting the entry of undergraduates into the laboratory research spaces. And I would echo what Kathleen said, that it is a fantastic way to find a place to belong within the larger culture of Amherst. I think a lab offers a really unique learning experience that complements and augments the things that we can do in the classrooms. I'd say finally that the coursework at Amherst beyond your introductory years, especially the courses with laboratory components, will offer you again more experience in with dealing with actual research questions in a more structured way than the thesis research and the independent study project. But it is also another way that you can get research experience, and it's a great way to build relationships with professors. And I think most everyone that is interested in research can find an opportunity at some point during their careers, whether it starts slow and as space opens up, it gets much more involved. But I think there are a few students that can report coming through the Amherst College who wanted to do research, who were not able to access research at some point during their careers here. And again, as Kathleen said, it's a fantastic way, particularly for underclassmen, to get into research, because it can be difficult with limited experience to get experiences elsewhere. I would say that as a very, very final thing, the model here is a little bit different than at larger research intensive schools. You can for sure go to the best colleges you hear about and in terms of large research schools, but at those institutions, fantastic as they might be, undergraduates are a little bit lower on the pecking order because they have postdocs and graduate students and research assistants and staff scientists and a number of people. When I say lower on the pecking order, I mean it's difficult to get the kind of dedicated and concerted training that you can get here. Because in my laboratory, as part of my research, which is a really important component of my job and what I do here, all of my research is done by and with undergraduates. And that is a powerful thing to be able to say about an elite college like as we are at Amherst College. And one of the big differences is that it all happens between the undergraduates and the professors. So you get a lot of our time and a lot of our training. And I think that really distinguishes us from a number of places.
Both. So thank you for such a robust and comprehensive answer to that question. Students, would you mind sharing a little bit, Kat mentioned a little bit, but would you mind just talking about some of the logistical steps of securing some of these opportunities? How competitive is it, and how can you go about securing these opportunities throughout your time at Amherst?
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about that. Last summer, I worked with a math professor on graph theory research. And so I believe it was in April, I sent him an email and just expressed that I was interested in working with him. And I didn't really know much about graph theory before working with him that summer, but he was willing to let me into his group. And so I would say there isn't much competition you have to worry about. There are so many opportunities that if you want one, you can definitely have one. And also, you don't have to worry too much about the experience that you have, because professors are willing to help you build the experience that will help you both while working with them and for future opportunities.
I can also add on to sort of for my experience. I just sort of asked my professor, I need to do something. Can you help me out? And she was like, yes, I got you. So the cool thing about Amherst is that the professors are so welcoming and so like they want you to actually succeed. And sometimes like for me, when I didn't know what I was going to do, I was like, "Oh, I need to do something for the summer, right?" So I went to my professor. I was like, can you hook me up? And she's like, I got you. And it was actually really funny because my summer thing got canceled for this summer because, you know, of the whole pandemic going on. So she actually messaged me. She contacted me first and was like, I hear internships are getting canceled. Do you still need something to do for the summer? If so, I can try to submit an application for you. Like she was willing to do that for me, and like I didn't have to do a single thing. And I think that's one of the cool things that Amherst is able to provide.
Yeah, everything definitely builds off of these like professor relationships, and I think that that's like one of the real benefits of being at a school like Amherst, because we're in labs, in like teaching labs with them, and there's only like 20 other students, or we're in lectures and there's still small enough groups of people where you get to know your professors. And I had a very similar experience where I like wasn't planning on doing research, and then Professor O'Hara, who was my biochemistry professor, was like, are you doing one? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And she's like, well, I have a spot in my lab. Like, you want to come learn about it? Like, just let me know. Like, no pressure. But, and I think that a lot of people can kind of speak to that, because just because of how much interaction we have with professors and how much they like truly are just interested in like our success and our growth as like researchers and like intellectuals. So I think that that's really special.
Oh. Would you mind talking a bit about what students who major in STEM fields at Amherst do after graduating?
Uh, Whatever their little hearts desire, really. Um, we are extraordinarily successful. Uh, I'll emphasize that, extraordinarily successful in any possible, by any possible metric, progressing students into medical schools. A lot of our students come here on the pre-med track, and within a couple of years, there are statistics floating around, but within a couple of years, the students get to go to the med school, to get into medical schools, and many into the medical schools that they really want to get into. While the training, our sort of ship is pointed towards a sort of a much broader vision of education. We are a liberal arts school, an open curriculum. We don't have a pre-med track per se. We have a really excellent health professions committee that guides students on their path to pre-med, but we have biology majors and chemistry majors and BCBP majors, all, and English majors and American studies majors, all of whom are medical school aspirations and are able to do the courses that they need to get there. But get a really well-rounded educational experience. And I think that makes the difference and tells in our success rate of getting students there. I am really personally invested in getting a lot of students into graduate school as a scientist myself. That is the path to doing academic and research science. So we send a number of school students there, but we have a lot of folks that go on to law and go on to teaching, K through 12 and other programs, who move on to do Teach for America and a number of other things. We have an excellent career center here at the Loeb Center, and a really robust alumni network, and a lot of experience in connecting students to alumni. I trained at WashU, McGill in Montreal, WashU in St. Louis, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Harvard. I have not been in a school like Amherst that mobilizes their alumni and career center in quite as powerful a way as we do at Amherst College in terms of connecting students to opportunities. The number of students here who report to me, because I'm relatively new, getting on the phone with alumni and talking to them about their careers and building those kinds of relationships was really startling to me at the onset, and it is a particular strength of the college. So students go on to do medical school, grad school, and really a whole host of other things. If you can dream it up, we can help you get there, and we'll prepare you well to do so.
And something to add to that, I know a lot of math majors go on to work in business or finance or something like consulting. So I think even though Amherst doesn't have a specific business courses or courses that teach you like the more technical parts of finance, I think what's really special about the math major and all of the other majors is that they teach you how to think logically and to solve problems, which end up being really important as you go on to a career in business, for example.
To build off of that question, would you mind talking a little bit about some of the internship opportunities and some of the specific places that students can do an internship or do some kind of work experience during their Amherst time?
Yeah, so to continue off what I was saying before, I know many students who are in their junior year end up working in finance or consulting. And so there are definitely a lot of opportunities, both on-campus recruiting and by connecting with alumni to get those types of positions. I've ended up reaching out to a lot of Amherst alums, and they've always been very willing to both talk to me about my experience at Amherst and about their experience in the working world. And that's been really helpful just because those connections are important when going through the application process for internships and jobs. And so that's something that Amherst has been very helpful with that. And it's really prepared students to find, opportunities for their life after Amherst.
And I think echoing what Professor Edwards said about the Career Center, I think that they're such an amazing resource, and they have professionals in each of the different main fields that you could be interested in. So I personally went the pre-med route, so I was very, very in touch with Dean Arrington and his team, and basically throughout the years he's helped me, giving me alumni to reach out to who he thinks I would get along with or in my area or have research opportunities and things like that, pointing me towards internships that he's found that other Amherst students have really liked, connecting me with medical students at the schools that I interviewed, and other students to just get an idea of what medical school was like and kind of learning more about that. And I think that is another like really, really special that feature of Amherst, is that you have these people that are really invested, and like their job is to help you go farther and just decide where you want to be and help you get these like internship opportunities that then can turn into jobs like Matt was saying, or can just be really great like networking opportunities, and because you kind of don't really know where you're gonna be in the future, and you could be calling on other Amherst alums. And because the school is so small, everyone sees Amherst in their inbox and immediately wants to help. Everyone's like very much more connected than if you had this big school where it's like, oh, there are thousands and thousands of kids that go there. I don't really feel that connected to them. So I think that's just like really special, and like recognizing like every email I've sent out to Amherst alums they've gotten back to me within a few days, and that's like really special too.
I can speak more about the logistics. I guess one of the cool things about Amherst is that a lot of internships are like, you don't get paid for that. So Amherst, for the most part, it's like usually like a 90% approval rate, but they'll fund your summer internship for like up to $4,500. So for instance, last summer, I worked at a nonprofit in like the Bay Area, right? So it was like, I was not gonna get paid at all. So I talked to Amherst, and, they gave me money to have housing and for food and for, gas. and for all of that stuff. So I think that's really cool that Amherst has has the money in order to support whatever internships that you want, whether it be research, nonprofit work, so whatever you want to do for the summer.
Everyone. And I know Professor Edwards mentioned medical school, but would you mind speaking anecdotally, any of you, about the success rates and the success that students have applying to graduate programs in STEM fields beyond medical school?
So in my lab, I work like the lab next to us is the Jaswell lab, and then the one next to us is the Bishop lab. And basically a lot of the seniors are kind of just hanging out there doing our work there, and we always get to chatting, and they become some of my best friends, but also they're some of the most successful like grad school stories, I think, which is really cool. A lot of them have been applying to PhD programs and had their choice of like 10 different programs that wanted them. They went to go interview all over the country, all throughout the year. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Like that, like all these places really just like love having Amherst people. There's like wonderful Amherst connections through all of them. I know a lot of people, they would fly out to California and go interview somewhere there and stay with Amherst with people that they didn't really know, but like had connections through Amherst and the research opportunities there. And so it's just really cool to see all the things that my classmates have been able to like go on to do. A lot of them are already locked into these PhD programs. Other people are applying to other types of programs that they're just interested in, some like teaching, some consulting jobs right away. And I think that Amherst really sets you up for whatever you want to do, because you do have the training that you need, but you also, like Matt said, like have this like really like vast and broad background, which like you can be successful in whatever you decide you want to do.
I teach an advanced cell biology class right now with 32 students. I have, let's see, there are 4 seniors in that class. One of them has missed 2 or 3 labs, which I was happy for him to do because he was interviewing at various graduate schools around the country. We have one student who's won in the class the Goldwater Prize. The Goldwater Prize is a really prestigious research fellowship for undergraduates around the country. Amherst has had 1 or 2 Goldwater winners every year. This is not something a lot of schools can boast of, particularly schools of our size. And I just wrote a letter about 8 months ago for a student who applied for a Churchill Fellowship and another for a Fulbright, 2 extremely prestigious research fellowships that allow you to go do research for a year anywhere in the world. For the Fulbright, and the Churchill Fellowship gets you a year doing independent research at Cambridge in England. I just found out a week ago that the student I wrote the letter for indeed got her Fulbright, and another student got their Churchill. I've been here for 2 years, and already I've written letters for 2 Goldwater winners and a Churchill winner and a Fulbright winner. When I left my postdoc at Hawkins, my friends stayed there as professors, and they haven't written any of these letters for any of their students. And that is a feature of the college that speaks to our success at training students to do research. And as Kathleen said, the Bishop and Jaswell labs and the labs in that corridor in chemistry are really successful at turning out graduate students, as are the rest of the laboratories as well. But the students, particularly the students that progress to doing theses with us, a number of other students go as well, but the thesis puts you on a sort of a track for graduate schools in research in particular. Those students frequently have their pick of graduate schools at the largest and most well-known research institutions in the world. So I think we're really good at that. We just hired a STEM career specialist in the Loeb Center, the Career Center, that is going to specialize again in sort of non-medical, non-healthcare related careers, so research, graduate school, and graduate school and STEM scholar programs, STEM science and math journalism programs. So we've just augmented our already impressive career center to focus on graduate school, getting into graduate schools and careers outside of medicine. So I think we're really good now, and we're committed to getting even better.
And would you mind talking a bit about what kinds of extracurricular opportunities there are in STEM fields? And perhaps to start, Kenny, would you mind talking a bit more about your experience with the nonprofit organization you were working with?
Oh, it wasn't a STEM field. It wasn't, but it was just I guess, an example of Amherst being able to pay. But I think that brings up another amazing point about Amherst is that you learn so many new things. Like I thought I wanted to be an environmental studies major or an English major, right? But then when I took like a statistics class, I was like, wow, I love this. And then I transitioned. But speaking of like extracurricular activities, I think there's a lot out there. For me, I'm part of this thing that like trains data science for undergraduate students, just because data science as a field is very grad student heavy. And so a lot of undergrads don't get that experience or that exposure. And so one of the cool things is that Amherst, once again, really does care about exposing undergrads to these things that graduate students are doing. And so I think in the Pioneer Valley, there's just so many. I think if you, as long as you meet with professors and you talk to them, get to know them, they'll find stuff for you to do. For statistics, there's not like labs or anything, but there's still ways for me to get involved, such as being a TA, being a grader, making homework examples, creating these like packets for summarizing information. And sometimes you don't even need to be like doing profound research. Sometimes professors will pay you to just like learn about a subject, which is like you get paid to learn. Like it's, that's cool.
I also TA'd a few labs throughout my years here, which I think is a really great opportunity to get involved and kind of pay it forward. So a lot of the labs are about 20 students in a lab with one professor and then one or two TAs depending on the lab. And which is really, really awesome considering that in a lot of big schools, the professors aren't really involved in the labs. It's the graduate students or the postdocs that are running your labs. But here, the professors are very much invested in the labs and can really give like one-on-one feedback in that setting. But there are a lot of TAing opportunities too. So you can basically, you get paid to walk around and teach other and help other students get through it, and really great way to pay it forward and connect with younger students, which I really liked. And I know a lot of my friends have also taken advantage of that opportunity to kind of be doing something in STEM and in something that you're interested in while also making a little bit of extra money.
You all. So I'd like to now shift a little bit to a little bit more of an interdisciplinary discussion. We've received a number of questions about what it's like to take classes both in STEM fields, major in STEM, and also either major or take classes in humanities fields. So would you mind speaking to what it looks like and if you feel restricted in credit hours when taking STEM classes? Maybe Matt, you can talk about crossing the humanities and STEM fields. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, I'm a math and American studies major. And so to answer the first question, are there any restrictions for being able to fit those classes together? The answer is no. It's very easy to find courses that fit in terms of schedules. And I think I'm really glad that I was able to have a mix of humanities and STEM in terms of a major, because I think they actually complement each other in terms of developing the way that I think. I like to say that in math, I've developed a skill for making logical and efficient arguments. And that type of skill is something that I've been able to apply in my American Studies classes, for example, when writing a paper and trying to express an argument in as efficient way as possible. And so I think the point is, it's going to Amherst and being able to take classes in these different disciplines not only is great because you're able to learn about a variety of things, but it also helps you in all the different types of classes that you can take. So you never know how a math class might help you in your history or English classes, or even the other way around.
I think a lot of people really enjoy the opportunity to kind of take classes outside of STEM. And I know that I have kind of over the years as I progressed on doing some of the pre-med requirements, going through the biochemistry curriculum. I've always really looked forward to my 1 or 2 humanities classes that I took a semester. I got to explore a lot of different departments, art history, history, religion, English, and I've kind of really just taken a bunch of different classes that I really wasn't super sure I would be interested in, and they all turned out to be kind of some of my favorite classes because you're really challenged and taught how to think and write, and I think that that's something that's really important no matter what you go into. They're really wonderful professors, and the fact that there is an open curriculum, so everyone's not forced to take beginner intro English or a language class or something that they're not into, makes all of the classes super interesting because every student that's there like wants to be in that class and is like excited to do the reading and share about like what their thoughts are and stuff. So I've really enjoyed those classes because it kind of gives a little bit of a break from the problem sets and the textbook readings, and you're more just, oh, I'm reading this novel for homework, that's cool. Like really you just can dive into different types of literature and stuff that is really helpful, that Amherst does encourage that, and that we can just walk to the next building over from the Science Center and be sitting in an English class or something like that.
To add on, I think you're forced to take 4 classes and you can't take more than like 5 or 6. And Amherst puts those like restrictions on the amount of credits you can have because like we don't want you to like die or like overload yourself. Because I think one of the main things we value at Amherst is having this balance, is having this well-rounded curriculum, scheduling. I guess on the topic of intersectionality, I think one of the cool things is that even if you're in a STEM class, they really like advocate for like a humanities way of looking at the world. In my stats classes, I'm always like critiqued on my writing and how I interpret or how I, make my conclusions and arguments. So even if you're not in like all humanities, STEM still has that like humanities aspect to it, which is something I really appreciate. And with Amherst's open curriculum, like it's just so freeing to be able to do your majors, but then go outside of it and take, as Kathleen mentioned, like art history or like a SWAGS class or a gender studies or a Black studies. And it's another way of like, broadening your view of the world, which is something that Amherst also really values.
And would you mind talking about what is the balance between academics and extracurricular life like? How do you balance your academics? Amherst students are really busy outside of class as well. And could you talk about what that balance feels like in reality?
So I have found the balance to be very manageable. I am on the swim team. So during the winter months of the year, we have sometimes 4 hours of practice a day. But it's definitely possible to get your work done because, first of all, professors are always understanding of the fact that you have things going on outside of class. So something that's definitely different about Amherst than my high school experience was that if you have something that you're struggling with, it's very easy to go to a professor, express that to them, and have them understand that experience and give you solutions that work for you. But also, even though there is a lot of time students spend on extracurriculars, I think professors are understanding of the amount of work they give to make sure that it's something that you're able to get done and it's something that you're able to do well. So I think it's something that's special about Amherst, that you're able to take part in these extracurricular activities without it sacrificing your ability to succeed in your classes.
Right, and I think echoing what Matt said, like everyone at Amherst, because of the types of students that Amherst attracts, like everyone is very dedicated to their work, but in the same breath, everyone kind of has different outlets and different ways that they like to enjoy their free time and different chunks of time that they like leave for themselves or like hang out with friends. Or I play lacrosse, so that was like a big thing for me in the spring, especially. It would be hours and hours of practice and you come back and now it's time to do work. And I think It's pretty great because you have a bunch of classmates that are taking the same types of classes as you, that are as dedicated and want to learn as much as you do. And I found a lot of success doing a lot of group work. So making study groups with people who are similar to me and how they like to study. I'd like to talk through study guides and share information before exams, and things like that. So I think being in the environment where everyone is interested in what they're learning and wants to do well is just another way that Amherst is really special. And it also gives you, because everyone also likes to do other things and have fun and enjoy their free time, it's a good balance. And I think it's a very possible balance to strike, even if you want to commit to things that do take a lot of time.
Let's see. I'm trying to run through a list. Between my advisees and my lab, I have a econ bio double major, captain of the soccer team. I have 2 concert pianists who are in my lab. I have a first chair violinist. What else? I have 1 person in the swim team, 2 people who are on the board of Asian American. There's an Asian American student experience group here. A couple of them are in ASIMS, which is a student emergency medical services. Also, I have an oboe player. I teach her a lot about the oboe. I have 2 drummers, and I have 2 kids that have started a small startup doing computational work and building graphic producing software. And they are all my roster advisees or in my lab, all extraordinarily successful at what they do. And we pride ourselves with an open curriculum and with students who do, our students are incredibly busy between classwork and the things that they do outside. But we think it makes them better. We think it enriches their experiences, the students have testified to. And we think it makes them better scholars. We think learning how to find that balance and the discipline to do both things and do them well, or to do multiple things well, is really, really good practice for when you leave Amherst College. So the professors do their very, very best to make space for it, as the students have attested to, and to encourage it really. And you will see Amherst College faculty on the sidelines in the fall and in the spring cheering students on. And it's really fun for us. And we invest deeply in not just developing you as scholars, but developing you as people. In the science curriculum, we have a program started by Sheila Jaswal called Being Human in STEM, that focuses on the human experiences of folks in STEM and their identities and how we look at, experience, and practice science. And we are trying to be part of the revolution that changes who gets to practice science, what a scientist is, what they can be, where they can come from, what they can look like, and what their experiences are, and to center those experiences in the practice of science. So you will come to find that in all aspects, co-curricula, within the curriculum, that we're committed to developing good people and training really well-trained scholars.
Thank you all. How many students are in your STEM classes? How many students are in the classroom? And then a little bit more broadly, how many students are in these majors and majoring in these fields?
So right now I'm in one math class called analysis, and I believe we have around 26 people. And I'd say that's generally the size for most math classes. And the major has more than 100 people. It might be around 200 people. And even though it is, I believe it's the biggest major in terms of number of students, I think that's not to be confused with feeling drowned out in terms of being in that group. At office hours, the math professors always have office hours every week, and it's really easy to get individualized attention. Even if you're in a class of 28 people, you can go and meet with the professor, and they want to learn more about you and help you succeed in the class. So I think the classes probably range from 20 to 30 people for math, but it's very, very easy and encouraged to get individualized attention, either from professors or from the Q Center, which is a office on campus that has tutors for math.
So in the sciences, it definitely varies. I would say the upper level classes that I've been taking over the past 2 years have been similar to what Matt says, about 20, 25 students, where there's 1 or 2 lab sessions and you get very, very one-on-one attention in the lab sections because there's about 12 students in a section. A lot of them also have discussion sections, which are also smaller groups where you kind of work through problem sets and different types of activities. The biggest class I think I've been in was probably Intro Chem my freshman fall, and that was probably around 90 students. So that was a 90 student lecture where we would have 3 days a week lecture, but also we would have a lab once a week, which was 20 students and a professor, and a discussion once a week, which was also about 20 students and a professor. So even though that was the biggest class I've taken, I never really felt like I was just like one in like a bunch of kids because of how often we did have these like interactions with professors. And again, office hours are really, really highly encouraged because the professor will basically have their door open for these 2 hours on XYZ days, and you could just pop in and ask your questions about the problem set. And then that's when you like really start to build relationships. Like the other day, before we left campus, I would walk in and be like, hi, I have this question about my PChem problem set. And then she'd be like, oh, but how was your lacrosse game last weekend? Like whatever. And that's kind of just showing you like what type of relationships are fostered here. And so even though there are a few of the introductory classes that are larger, you never really feel like you're not important.
To add on to what everyone else said, I think if the class is required for a major, it will usually have more people. But for a lot of electives, for instance, I'm in this epidemiology class and there's only 12 people in it. So I think it, ranges from like 12 to, as Cal was saying, like 70 people. But, you still get that intimacy if you do go to open office hours. And even if, I think one of the cool things is that professors are also very accommodating. If you can't go to these certain XYZ hours at this time, most people do is just you email them, say, hey, can we meet at this time or whatever. And most professors will, usually see what they can do. And yeah, professors are just like, you'll go in and ask one question about problem set or something, and then next thing you know, they'll be talking to you about like the tiny lemon tree that they're growing in their porch, or like that they're learning how to juggle. And then you just start hearing stories about their family and then their kids, and then you really build that relationship through by going to office hours.
Thank you. This is a great segue to our next question. Would you mind sharing, has there been a professor who has totally incited or changed your interest in a field? And would you mind sharing that experience?
So last semester, I took a class called Graph Theory with Professor Contreras, and it's not something I knew very much about before I went into the class, but I've always been very interested in aviation and the airline industry. And for our final project, we were able to use Graph Theory and apply it to the different models that airlines use to design their flight paths and the routes that they offer. And so I think it was a really cool way. It opened my eyes to another way to analyze aviation, which is something that I've always been interested in. So in that way, I'd say Professor Contreras opened my eyes to, first of all, graph theory and its many applications.
So last winter I took this past like interterm, I took this like 3 or 4 day course with Dean Aronson, and it was basically about like cultural competency in healthcare. And we had read this book that I had kind of always wanted to read. It was like always like in the back of my mind, but I never really had a chance to. I saw he was offering it, so I was like, okay, like this is a great time for me. I'll be working on my thesis anyway. Like it'll be good for me to kind of have a break and do something else. And it was only a 3 or 4 day class, but I really, really enjoyed it because it kind of just opened my eyes to like all the, although I knew a little bit about like the inequities in healthcare and how differences in culture or background can change how providers act and how medicine is received. I think it was just like a really important time for me to talk to other students about this novel that we had read, and kind of just like really like I knew I wanted to go into medicine and I was already like in the application process, but for me it was just kind of the icing on the cake as like, wow, this is like really what I'm supposed to be doing. And the way that he talks about medicine is just so profound and like so interesting. It's like so much more than just like biologically treating viruses and treating disease. And I think that that's what I really, really appreciated about it was so much about the whole person. And the school that I'm probably going to be going to has a very similar outlook as he does. And I think that that's just like really special. There are a lot of really great people here that can really change your mind and teach you things that you didn't really realize you needed to hear. But like in the end, like I'm really glad I did.
For me, it was Professor Horton from the statistics department. I took data science with him last semester, and that was like my first introduction to data science. And which is interesting, he didn't change me because now I love data science, but like he's a biostatistician in like from his his history, and so just meeting him and just talking to him about his previous work, that's what really inspired me to pursue this path of biostatistics. And so sometimes I just want to reiterate, just like sometimes crazy things can happen by talking to professors. You'll never know who you'll end up talking to, what will happen. And so, and I think that's one thing that Amherst facilitates really well is just talking to professors and networking.
Well, so I would like to ask a final question of Professor Edwards. Professor Edwards, what drew you to Amherst specifically and made you want to teach at Amherst as opposed to a larger research institution? I know you touched on this a little bit before, but would you mind sharing your thought process around that?
Sure. I think midway through my postdoc, I got an inkling. When I started my postdoc, I remember writing into my job letter that I want to learn to teach. I wanted to get some teaching experience and learn. Research postdocs, particularly at large research institutions, are research focused. But I wanted to spend some time teaching, so I did. I taught at Notre Dame of Maryland, a really small liberal arts school in Baltimore, for a semester. I really, really loved it. And I think that sort of cemented for me that I'm really interested in research, and I'm really interested in the research questions that I pursue, but I'm also interested in research, but not just in teaching, but not just teaching, but training. I was really interested in training the future generations of scientists. I'm really interested in questions of wanting to see more scientists that look like me, more Black and brown folks getting into STEM careers and getting into the sciences. And I wanted to think about the fact that I hadn't met Black scientists, or I hadn't been taught Black scientists until I was taking like a small course as a postdoc, which was at the end of my formal classroom-based education, in 15 years of science training. Never, met some, but never really been taught by any. And I wanted to think about being that scientist and being that teacher for a generation of young trainees, particularly at 18 and 19 years old, when you're a lot more impressionable, and so the world is your oyster. The world is always your oyster, but I think at that age you're beginning to make decisions about your future, and I wanted to be a good influence. So I was picking schools to apply to that had a really strong research background, because I'm a researcher by trade and by profession, and that combined that with teaching and training and instruction in a really robust way. So I wanted places that excelled really in both. And that narrowed the list down for me considerably. And Amherst was one of those schools. A mutual friend of Amherst College professors here reached out to me and said, there's a job opportunity. I applied, I interviewed here. And when I was here, I met a bunch of students. I had lunch with a bunch of students, and that was really great. They were smart. They asked really, really good questions. I mean, I'll be honest, they asked better questions than my undergrads at Hopkins were asking me. So I was really impressed. I was really impressed with them. One student in particular had read my papers and was interested, and was like, you know, if you come here, I want to work with you. And I found one of the most important things for a young scientist in training, for getting into the grad school and for being successful as a scientist, regardless if you're a researcher, you work at a pharma company, in anything that you do, is a relentless curiosity. You need to be driven by this passion to learn and to find out what's next, because that's the thing that keeps you going. Not the training or anything else, but that innate curiosity to figure things out. And this student just had it in spades, just so curious about the research. I had to end the conversation early because I was like, I got to go interview for the job. I might not get it if I sit here and I talk to you for the entire time. So I took the job, and I was really excited to come here for those reasons. That student became my first thesis student. That first thesis student became I hired him as a research technician. And we were sitting on Zoom just now before this panel. I have to go back to him in 10 minutes here, writing the first paper for my lab that he will be the first author on. And I think that best encapsulates why I came here. I came here for the personal reasons that I shared, but I came here to train really great students. And the raw material at Amherst, the really great students that I find here, the amazing research facilities, at a place where I can build good relationships. I don't tell them about my lemon tree, Kenny, but I talk to them about my boat quite a bit. So that's why I came. That's why I picked him. And I am 2 years in. I have trained the 6th senior is going to graduate this semester from my lab, who spent time with me, and I think I made a really good choice.
Thank you, Professor Edwards. Thank you, Kenny, Kat, and Matt, for joining us. This has been super helpful. Thank you to all of our admitted students who have tuned in. We hope that this has been helpful to you. I'm sorry that we weren't able to get to all of your questions. If there were questions that were unanswered, please feel free to send those directly to us in the admission office via email at admission@amherst.edu, and we will get back to you with answers to those questions as quickly as possible. I also want to remind all of you that to please continue looking at your application status portal for updates to events we're having, to sessions we're holding, and a reminder that on Sunday, our president, Biddy Martin, will be giving an address to admitted students. So if you're interested in hearing her speak, please feel free to tune in then. But thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure getting to hear from our panelists, and we hope this has been helpful.